Bitch, who are you? Pretty black cute.
Santa baby, hurry down the chimney tonight. Cause baby, I know they calling for me to come down the chimney. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, can we get into the... Cause I don't know if it's snowing where y'all are at, but up in the tri-state area it's snowing, so you know what's popping out. The white fur, okay? It's the white fur, okay? It's the clear skin, it's the updo, okay? But anyways, welcome to the Barbie Life 2.0 podcast. I'm your host, Shakira, aka Barbie 2.0. And today we are going to step away from trending topics because I want to talk about an issue that is clearly not talked about enough, because a lot of people do not want to get into the deep-rooted, terrible, horrible treatment that Black women experience in corporate America. Simple as that. A lot of people like to gaslight the issue or just act like it doesn't exist. And a bitch like me is just not going for it because I'm tired, okay? I'm tired, and now we're going to talk about it, okay? But there are multiple forms of discrimination that you will face as a Black woman in the workplace or in corporate America, okay? Now, I'm going to talk about racism first, just because, you know, that's the most common one, and, you know, might as well. So, racism, for example, you will experience racism before the recruiting process even starts, okay? Statistically, Black people are 5 times less likely to get a job compared to their white counterparts. Already. Off rip. So, as soon as you submit that application, you done already submitted it into the racist plantations. I'm just saying. You basically submitting your sheet of paper to a system that's gonna work right the fuck against you.
Crocky.
It's sad, but it's true. For example, if there is a position for a program manager, for example, and me as a Black woman, I'm applying, and I have my bachelor's degree, I have my master's, and I have 10 plus years in experience. A white man who has a bachelor's degree only, not a master's, and not even nearly half the experience that I have, will have a far greater chance of getting that job compared to me. That is just how it is. And it doesn't stop at the recruiting process, unfortunately, okay? It also goes into how you get treated in the office or how you get treated in the workplace, okay? And when you are around majority white people, or when you're in a work environment where you're one of the only Black people there, you will experience subtle racism from white people, and you will experience racism from people of color, but it won't be as direct as Black people are towards other Black people, if that makes sense. Let me break it down for you. So there's a thing called unconscious bias, and this basically means that you unconsciously have prefixated biases based on how somebody looks or based on a particular group that they may belong to, whether it's their race or religion or whatever the case may be. So your unconscious mind already has a certain opinion or a certain stereotype that's already fixated about this person, just because you've been brainwashed and you've been listening to a lot of European beauty standards and a lot of, you know, white propaganda that brainwashes you into having racial biases unconsciously, and you wouldn't even know it. So it's a lot of white people like that. You all hear white people be like, oh, I'm not racist. My friend's Black. I'm not racist. My husband's Black. I'm not racist. My daughter's Black. And it's like, Susan, you are racist, okay? You just don't go up to Black people and say, fuck you, I don't like N-words. But that doesn't mean that you're not racist. Okay, you're still racist. You still have those racial biases that you carry. You just carry them unconsciously. But unfortunately, your unconscious mind does affect your physical conscious reactions and your physical actions to things and people. So when you do have unconscious biases and they're racially motivated, you will unintentionally start doing racist stuff towards other people without even realizing that you're being racist. And when it comes to white people in the workplace, they are the queen of microaggressions. They won't be upfront racist to you. I'll tell you that much. Like, in the workplace, there's so many training programs, so many rules written that is just against blatant racism. So you will never ever walk into a workplace and hear a white person like just straight up call you the N-word or say he doesn't like black people. That's not how they do. White people, they sneaky about their racism in the workplace, okay? They gonna do some shit like get mad at you because you're too quiet.
Are you serious to me right now?
As a black woman, especially a dark-skinned black woman, when you're in the workplace, you can't be shy and you can't be quiet. That's literally against the law and it's a crime at this point. Because when you're shy and when you're quiet and you have a resting bitch face to add it and top it off there, yeah, a lot of people with unconscious racial biases automatically assume that you're stuck up, that you don't want to be there, that you don't want to work, and that you don't like your coworkers, and that you're actually mean and shady. You see, in the workplace, as a black woman, you have to be bubbly for them to consider you nice. You have to literally be like, oh my God, hi, good morning, how are you today? Oh my God, you had such a great weekend. I had such a great weekend too. Like, that is how they expect you to act as a black woman in corporate America to be accepted.
Clocky.
You can't be shy and be a black woman in corporate America. And I think it's honestly really stupid, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Because I've even experienced this as well. I've been in workplaces where I've had my bosses literally pull me into meetings and she'll tell me stuff like, your facial expressions in our last meeting were disrespectful. And the whole time I was just sitting there listening like this. And I'm like, my white male coworkers were sitting in the meeting and listening the same way I was. So how come they're allowed to be quiet and shy, but I have to be all bubbly and laughing all the time for you to think that I'm in a good mood or for you to be comfortable around me? But me sitting there with a straight face and blinking is a threat to people who have racial biases against black women and black people in general. It's a threat because they already perceive you as aggressive and they already perceive you as problematic. So even when you're sitting there and doing absolutely nothing, they're still going to find a way to pick at things so they can label you as such.
Clocky.
Oh, and don't even try to stand up for yourself. Especially in a white setting where it's predominantly white. Don't even try it. Okay? Because the minute you start to defend yourself, those people will not even hear a word that you said. Okay? The amount of times I've been in a workplace and I felt like I was either doing too much work and it wasn't in my job description, or I felt like I wasn't being treated fairly compared to my other coworkers, or even if I just had other concerns, you know what I mean? Anytime that I spoke up about these stuff to my white coworkers or my white bosses, they didn't even hear a word I said. It's like they were listening to respond, but they weren't listening to hear me. It would always be, I'm gonna need you to calm down. Okay, I see that this is a difficult time for you and you're getting very feisty. oh, you're a fiery one. And I'm like,
oh my God.
And these comments will come when you're not even being like, you're not doing the most. You're literally not doing the most. Like, when I'm in the workplace, I talk so calm. Like, my tone, it's not even how I speak to you guys on my podcast. Like, I code switch, okay? I sound like Becky from the block sometimes. I do. And I stay as calm as possible. And all they see is an aggressive black woman who's just mad, and nobody can really fix her issues because she's just mad at the world just cause. That's how they see it. That's how they see it. For real. So I would say, as a black woman, when you're trying to defend yourself in the workplace, stay as calm as possible. I will go take a bathroom trip and do breathing sessions and meditate before I will ever like make a scene in an office or anything like that. Even if somebody did something so out of line and you're so frustrated to the point where you want to like blow somebody's head off, don't do it. Because the minute you get violent or the minute you lose control of your emotional state, they will use that against you and you will never win and you will never be right. Okay? Even in real life, okay? Like, you see stories all the time about like the Beckys who will start drama with black people unprovoked. And then when those black people defend themselves, the black people end up going to jail. And it's like, Becky started with us. We use self-defense, but now we're getting charged. Okay. But that's the world we live in. And as a black woman in corporate America, you can't defend yourself to a point where you're losing control of your emotional state. You have to stay in control, okay? You have to keep up that classy composure. And as much as I hate the whole strong, independent black woman thing and how they expect us to be bulletproof and they don't ever expect us to be vulnerable, and it's like we're not allowed to cry or feel any emotions in the workplace, it's no way around it. Like, you have to work with the system. You can't like sit up here and be like, I'm allowed to have emotions as a black woman, blah, blah, blah. Because most of the people in the workplace are not trying to hear it. We can do that stuff on social media because social media is a wide range of people. There's gonna be an audience who wants to hear it and who wants to learn. But in your workplace full of 35 people or 20 people, you may not come across people who are that open to learning or unlearning their racial biases. So when you defend yourself, trying to teach people in the workplace, you're just going to waste your breath and your energy. Trying to educate on why they shouldn't gaslight you on anything or why they shouldn't view you as aggressive for defending yourself. You trying to teach them that there's racial bias behind it, like, it's a sad fight that you're just going to lose. Like, they're not, like, most people are not going to be open to listening to that, like, at all. And it's like, unless they're being blatantly racist to you and saying that they hate black people or they don't like the N-word or, you know, whatever the hell they say that's blatantly racist, if they're not being blatantly racist to you, they know they can get away with it, and they will. So you could be expressing your frustrations to your boss, and he could look at you and just be like, this is just another day of another angry black woman throwing a tantrum. And he not even listening to you while you express your concerns or what's going on. He just sees an emotional woman who has no self-control and is going to get aggressive at some point. They dehumanize you. And they don't do that with other races. A white girl, she could walk into the office, storm in her boss's office and cry, throw a tantrum, throw desk, and they gonna invite her into the office the next day, have a whole meeting, And then probably even the next week they're gonna do like a whole HR training on how to improve the work environment for employees. Okay? You're not protected at all. At all. Okay? They're gonna protect Becky. Don't let Becky be vulnerable. But they're not gonna let you be vulnerable. So, yeah. And another thing they'll let Becky do, they'll let Becky be mediocre. And as a black woman in corporate, you have to be perfect pretty much all the time. You make one small error, that's it. Now it's a bunch of write-ups, or now they're making a big deal out of that one mistake that you made. But Becky could make 10,000 mistakes in 1 week and they're still going out to coffee or going out to lunch after the shift is over. Everyone's still cool with Becky after she done made the company lose $40,000. But you've been giving the company $200,000 in sales every single month. And you have one off month where you weren't doing as well, and maybe you make 56,000 instead. And next thing you know, it's like, I understand that this black girl has been perfect throughout the whole entire time that we have employed her, but because of this one mistake, we are going to make a huge deal out of it. We're going to have a meeting. We're going to write her up. Honestly, we might even fire her because this is unacceptable. But, even though Becky has made far worse mistakes and she's been here longer, we got to keep Becky because we love her. That's how it's going to be. That is how it's going to be. You will be put to an extremely high standard in the workplace compared to other people, including black men. You will be looked at as a machine who has to work perfectly all the time. You have to look perfect all the time. You have to behave perfect all the time. You can't have a bad day. God forbid you have emotions. God forbid you get a ticket in the morning. God forbid you miss your coffee. Now you're the most evil person in the world. Meanwhile, your white coworkers and Becky over there comes in late to work every single day, doesn't complete her assignments, but nobody says anything. People just let it slide. So you have to be on your P's and Q's. You got to be on your toes. Okay? Because with all of these things that I just mentioned about the racism and the recruitment process, the subtle microaggressions and racism that you will experience when it comes to facial expressions or being shy, or even your work ethic and the standard that they put your work compared to other people, when you're dealing with all of this, baby, you're going to need to document and stay on your P's and Q's. Because you got to think about it like this. It's always going to be your word against theirs. And they're always going to win if there's no hard proof. You are always going to be guilty until proven innocent. Do you see what I'm saying? So if I'm working in a workplace and I file for discrimination, and, there's been times where I was in meetings and, they were being discriminatory towards me or treating me differently compared to my white coworkers. Or even an email or something like that. Who knows? Right? If I fail to document this can't ever use that against them in my case. I can't. Because then it's just going to be their word against mine. And they're obviously going to deny it. Oh, we would never do such a thing. We're not racist. We love black people. They'll deny it. And people will believe them if you don't have proof. But if you, for example, get into a meeting with the boss or a meeting with a coworker and they say something racist or they do something discriminatory, don't even tell them. Keep a tab, go right to your computer and write it down. Write the date, write the time it happened, and write exactly what happened in detail. Put it in a Word document. Every time a boss tells you a task or tells you to do something, follow up with them through email. Hey, boss, I just wanted to follow up with you based on our last conversation a few hours ago. You had stated that I should blase, blase, blase. However, I think I should blase, blase, blase. But I wanted to confirm with you first, since based on our last conversation, you had stated blase, blase, blase. And you got to use those key words. You stated. You said. I wanted to follow up with you based on our past conversation. So the email implies that there was a conversation taking place where it was in person. But the minute they answer that email, they're confirming that that conversation happened. And now you can use it against them. So when I say document everything in the workplace, document everything. If they pull you into a meeting to talk about your facial expressions or the fact that you're too quiet or whatever, document. And depending on what state you're in, record. If anybody ever calls you randomly instead of emailing you or calls you to tell you something important, don't accept the call. And if you do accept the call, record. Because let me tell you, HR don't play. Especially about protecting them white people. They don't play. And the last thing a company wants is the reputation of white people being racist towards black people. They don't want that reputation. They just don't. So HR is going to do everything in their power to cover everything up. So if you go to HR and say, hey, like my coworker, he pulled me into a meeting and he said something about my facial expressions. I felt like it was racially motivated, or, you know, he said something discriminatory, or he treats me differently from my other coworkers. You know what HR is going to say? Okay, I'll talk to him. Then they're going to talk to him. Hey, did you do such a thing? No, honestly, she's overreacting. For real. It didn't really happen like that. Then you go back to HR. So, HR tells you, well, you know, he said it didn't really go that way. And, you know, I wasn't there. So, unless you have proof, there's not much I can do but just give him a warning. And if you don't have a recording, if you don't have a confirmation email, your problem is stationary and it's not going nowhere unless you go somewhere, which is a different job. But this is stuff that you will deal with at almost every workplace. So hopping jobs it's not going to save you from potentially experiencing racism. It's not going to happen. It's just not. And it's not just, dealing with white people too. There's people of color. People of color who are not black. They perpetuate racism in the workplace too. They do. Okay. Sometimes they do it a little bit more. And they go a little extra hard. Because a lot of non-black people of color, they know there's a hierarchy when it comes to socioeconomic status. They know. They know that it starts white people. Then it goes Asian. Then Indian. Then down the line, there's black people right at the bottom. A lot of non-black people of color, specifically Indians and Asians, they feel like they are a minority compared to white people. They really want to be close in proximity to whiteness. They feel like they don't have enough power compared to white people because they already feel insecure about the fact that white people are always going to be above them in the socioeconomic ladder. And they want to feel some sort of power. And the way to get that sense of power is to knock down the horse that's below you. And the only way to do that is to knock down black people because they can't knock down white people. And it makes them feel like they're closer in proximity to whiteness because they're using white supremacy to be prejudiced towards a group of people who don't have the same socioeconomic status as them. So if you walk into a workplace and you see it's extremely diverse, don't get happy yet, okay? You might be in the same situation you would be if you were in a predominantly white institution. So feel everybody out first, okay? And honestly, it goes way deeper than racism. It really does. Because colorism and texturism and featureism is so prevalent in corporate America, but nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about it. And you know why? Because people like that, they could get away with it. You see, when it comes to racism in the workplace, you can't be blatantly racist. You won't get away with that. Simple. Like, you will get a lawsuit. Simple as that. Like, simple. You have to use microaggressions or be subtly racist or do it in a sneaky way so that it's not as noticeable or something that somebody can really pin and put on paper to use against you in court or something like that. But black people in the workplace, they know that they can get away with being blatantly colorist and blatantly texturist and blatantly futurist. They know it. There are absolutely no training programs at all in any workplaces that talk about skin tone bias or colorism or texturism or featureism. They only talk about racism. And it's a very surface level explanation about racism and unconscious biases. And that's it. And because the black community has not even acknowledged colorism or texturism or featureism as prevalent issues in our community already, they don't give a fuck about perpetuating it in the workplace. So, in my opinion, and don't hate me for saying this, but sometimes working with black people is the worst experience you could ever give yourself as a black woman. Because those people will be very comfortable disrespecting you as a black woman. Okay? They will be very comfortable coming for you in your skin tone, and they'll blatantly say it. You will have coworkers who will blatantly say, oh, you black as shit. Oh, you're pretty for a dark-skinned girl. I would never want to be as black as you. You're too dark. Or the light switch. Oh, let me turn off the lights. Oh, I can't see her. Black people will do shit like that in the workplace and they will not care. And they know that they're not going to get in trouble for it. Because if you go to HR, guess what they're going to say? I'm confused. And you know why they're going to say they're confused? Because for some reason in corporate America, the only form of discrimination that we talk about is racism. And we only talk about it from the perspective of white people being racist towards black people or non-black people of color being racist towards black people. And corporate America has not caught up to the fact that black people have internalized racist beliefs sometimes. And they can perpetuate those negative beliefs onto other black people and make a negative work experience for other black people as well. I remember one time I had a black boss, and this man, first of all, he was a black manager to all black associates. And this man was the most colorist, self-hating man you will ever meet, okay? He was literally my skin complexion, but he would openly say that he did not like dark-skinned girls. And he thought they were ugly as hell. Yeah. And on my first day, I had to hear from my other coworkers that my own boss was cracking jokes about my skin complexion and was making fun of my skin complexion. And I had to go back to work every single day knowing that. And not only that, but he ended up bullying me and targeting me a lot at the job. And he ended up treating a lot of his associates with a lot of disrespect. And I was looking at him and I'm like, okay, if you were a white man, you would have watched yourself. You wouldn't have did all this extra shit. But you see, when you have a black manager or a black boss who is managing black people, they're gonna do whatever the fuck they want. Because black people in the workplace, they know who to mess with and who not to mess with. A lot of black people who have positions of power in corporate America oftentimes tend to power trip over their own people. Okay? Because a lot of black people are not used to being in power. I mean, we literally systemically are at the bottom of the food chain. So we are not used to having any sense of power. So when we finally get into a facility or a corporation that moves us up in the hierarchy, suddenly we feel too cocky about the power that we have. And because we feel like we can't power trip over other races because their socioeconomic status is still above us, we'll power trip over our own people. So in my experience, my worst bosses and my worst managers were always black. Always. Like my white managers, they always they would do subtly racist stuff or, microaggressions here and there, but they would never be as bad as my black managers or bosses because they knew as a white manager, you can't say certain things to a black associate. You know what I'm saying? But as a black manager, you can get away with saying a lot and doing a lot to a black associate. Because in corporate America, they don't pay attention to colorism or texturism or featureism. So, and the most people who perpetuate it, of course, in the workplace, the people who perpetuate colorism the most, black men and black women, of course. And I would say it's equally too. I can't even sit here and say it's mainly black men. Because when it comes to the workplace, black women are their biggest enemy. So I can't even sit here and say, oh, well, you know, a lot of black men perpetuate. No, like, it's a black men and black woman thing. Both of y'all do it. Bad. Because a lot of older generations, they let that colorism shit slide. And sometimes when you're in a workplace, like, I've had moments where I was in a workplace and, like, I had a black female coworker and me and her were making the same amount, but she was like 20 years older than me. And a bitch was mad about that because, I mean, if you have to stand next to a beautiful woman like me all day and then you have to come to terms with the fact that you're 20 years older than me and you're making the same amount as me, I would be mad too. But, you know, that led her to perpetuating all these colorist remarks and like making fun of me at work and stuff like that because of my dark skin. And I'm like, girl, you a whole black woman. Like, but it's like, that's who you gonna get it from. So don't be surprised when you walk into the workplace and you're in a predominantly black area, or even if you're around black people in general, and you start seeing a lot of hatred from your own people. And you start seeing more blatant hatred from your own people compared to other races. Because you're going to see the most hatred. As a black woman, you're going to see the most hatred from black women in the workplace first. And then black men right under. And then you got the Beckys and the blase. And to be honest, I know y'all gonna be like, oh, she just loves white men, blah, blah, blah. Like, no. But in my humble opinion, in my experience, I've had the best experience with white men in the workplace. And I've had the worst experience with my own people. A lot of the time, like, when I was working with white men, they never felt intimidated by me. And they didn't have like racial biases, and they always helped me move up in the company and always gave me my resources, all that stuff. Like, it was never like anything bad. But black men, they tend to see black women as competition in the workplace. So they see you as an enemy. So you can do good, but you can't do better than the black man you working with. Because then he gonna start to feel away, and then he gonna start to be weird and do some weird shit. And a black woman, it's a lot, like, unfortunately, it's a lot of self-hatred from black women. It just is. Like, especially when it comes to texturism, I feel like black women perpetuate texturism the most onto other black women. And y'all don't even realize how disgusting that is. Like, every time I get online, I see a black girl shaming another black girl for her natural hair. Or I see another black girl shaming a black girl for wearing a wig or for wearing extensions. And in the workplace, baby, I'm going to just say this. That Crown Act, it got passed. And I know the narrative that y'all thought y'all was running with, but in my opinion, that Crown Act got passed because black women were being texturous towards other black women in the workplace. I have never heard white people just up front be like, oh my God, I know your hair looks unprofessional today. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not possible. It could definitely happen. It probably has happened. But I wouldn't say it's as common because there's so many strict rules when it comes to racism, and they can't be blatantly racist. Like, they can give you microaggressions at most, but anything else is a lawsuit. So white people try to avoid that as much as possible. But black people, child, you could walk into the workplace with your 4C hair in, and it'll be a black woman talking about, girl, you look like you just rolled out of bed. You look a mess. You look dusty. You need to go get your hair done. Black women are the most critical of black women's hair. Period. And y'all do that in the workplace. And I feel like corporate America really needs to talk about this more because it has gone too far. Okay? It's so many black women getting mistreated in the workplace due to colorism and texturism and featureism by their own people. Literally. I mean, statistically, darker skinned people go through higher levels of discrimination in the workplace compared to lighter skinned people. And that's because, unfortunately, in our community, dark skinned women, we're also viewed as the least human and the least deserving of empathy or success. And sometimes, you know, as a dark skinned girl, you even intimidate the people you work with so much because you could be super good at your job, but the thought of a dark-skinned girl getting ahead of light-skinned Keisha and getting ahead of light-skinned Ron and getting ahead of dark-skinned Don just doesn't sit right with anybody's souls. So, if you are a dark-skinned woman in a predominantly black workplace, or you're surrounded by black people in the workplace, you will be the least protected. They will not defend you. You will be the most attacked. And if you're a little too good at your job, you will be the most unappreciated for your skills. Because you'll see a lot of other people who are less qualified or less hardworking get promoted before you do, just because they're of a lighter skin complexion. But honestly, based on everything I just said in this video, it is clear that corporate America has a lot of work to do. Okay? There are bigger battles than racism. Okay? And corporate America has not even successfully battled the racism war. So when it comes to colorism and texturism and featureism, baby, we're at like -5% in terms of where we are at in the finish line. Okay. So it's a lot of work that needs to be done. And I honestly think that a lot of these corporations should also include colorism and texturism and featureism into their training program. I think that colorism and texturism and featureism are just as important as racism, and other communities besides the black community experience these issues as well. So I think that it's really important that we incorporate these lessons into corporate America. But we also have to look deep within and understand that this doesn't start at the workplace, okay? You don't start being colorist at the workplace. Okay, you are just bringing behaviors that you have already developed from your real life experiences or based on your environment. So what we need to do as a community is really shed light on these issues, okay? We really need to have conversations about colorism and texturism and featureism within our community, because that is when we can actually start having serious conversations about how it affects black women and dark-skinned women in the workplace. And the only way we're going to solve these issues is if we actually acknowledge them and talk about it, which is something the black community hates to do. The black community will be super loud when a white person is being racist towards us, but if a non-black person of color is being racist and they look like the preference, y'all will let it slide. And if black people are being colorist or texturist or featurist or even homophobic or transphobic towards other black people, if they can rap good enough or if they can sing good enough or if they look good enough, y'all will just let it slide. And that's why these issues come up in corporate America, because we have let it slide for years. A lot of you raise your children to be colorists and texturists and featurists, and a lot of your children go to schools where it is predominantly colorists or texturists or featurists. So they develop these toxic traits at a very young age, and then they take it with them into the workplace. But I think it's our job as a community to have these conversations so it stops in the workplace. Because while we can't control what goes on in other people's homes and how they are raised, we can take control of how they treat us outside of their homes. And at the end of the day, there was a time where we fought super hard to not get spit on when we walk into restaurants. There was a time where we fought super hard to not have separated bathrooms. So I think this is a time where we as a community can fight super hard to end the microaggressions that Black women face in corporate America, and to really dig deep within the colorism and texturism and featureism that goes on within the Black community in corporate America. Because it shouldn't be allowed and it shouldn't take place at all. And it's disgusting that it's actually legal and you can hate on your own community in such a manner. It's honestly really sad and it's disgusting to me. And I don't want you guys to watch this video and think that there's no hope for you in corporate America. It's not that there's no hope. It's just you have to play the game. And playing the game doesn't mean necessarily compromising your integrity. It mainly means you just adjusting to the racist world that you live in. Okay? I mean, we have to do it every day in our real lives, and might as well do it in corporate America because that is how we get paid. That is how we pay them bills. But it comes a time where we also have to say it's enough. And we are tired of asking Black women and dark-skinned women to adjust to other people's racial biases. We shouldn't be asking anybody to change themselves or to adjust how they work or how they have a certain lifestyle, because there are other people who have racial biases and will use that against them in the workplace. Simple as that. But other than that, I'm super glad that we had this conversation, and I am so sorry, guys, that I have not been super consistent with my content. I promise you a lot of content is coming this week, okay? Like, I just got out of college. Your girl graduated. Yeah, girl graduated. Yes. Oh, honey, yes. Bachelor's degree, Bobby 2.0. It's bachelor's degree, Bobby 2.0 now. Thank you. But yeah, so I've just, life's been crazy, but I did want to do this video just because I've been seeing so much stuff online that's just like not relevant at all. And I'm like, can we talk about the real shit? Like, can we talk about the real issues? Like, this is what we are facing every single day when we walk into work, and nobody want to talk about this. Everybody want to just stay silent while this happens. Like, hell no. So I'm super glad that we had this conversation, because it needs to be talked about and it needs to be stopped, and more people need to be held accountable for their actions, especially in the workplace. And as for the Black community, we need to do a lot better, okay? We cannot sit up here and cry about racism while we are literally being the most hateful to each other, especially in places like corporate America, okay? Those are areas where we're supposed to stick together, but instead we normally just go against each other and fend for ourselves, which is really sad. And I'm hoping that our community can overcome this, because it's a damn mess and I'm not putting up with it anymore. So, but anyways, that's all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys very soon. If you're in the snowy streets, make sure you're driving safe, okay? Because today when I was driving, I was slipping in the snow. I said, oh, child. So make sure y'all are staying safe in the snow or whatever weather conditions you're dealing with. And I hope you guys have a great week. Stay motivated. And for anybody who feels like they have lost hope or has any depression, you know, seasonal depression or whatever, just know that I love you and I'm here for you, and I'm always going to be here for you, and I will miss you if you're gone. So, bitch, you better stay the fuck on this earth. Thank you. But I love you guys so much. I'll see you guys very soon. Bye. Besos.